Salutare, eu sunt Horia și bine v-am găsit la un nou episod din podcastul nostru. Sunt aici alături de Edi.
Salut și astăzi avem invitați pe echipa americană de robotică, ToborTech.
I am kind of the engineering notebook person. I control a lot of our robots documentation, like kind of how we articulate our creative process, as well as manage our outreach to different people and companies. So,
All right.
I am Mark. First of all, invitati. I know it's pretty early your time. I have lots of family in Romania. My mom is from Romania, so.
So do you speak Romanian?
And a little bit, but I've grown up in America, so
Oh, all right.
unfortunately I don't speak the language. But I'm on the hardware side of our team, and so I do a lot more of the design and construction. I do a lot of CAD work with 3D printing.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I do mostly software. I dabble in outreach and stuff like that, but I mostly just work on the software side of the robot, so that's autonomous and ToborTech.
Nice.
Okay, so we got like a bit of everything in here. Okay, thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, we should start with that.
I'm on the software part of the team.
Yeah, he's our Sophia, basically.
Yeah, I'm the Sophia.
And I'm basically your Mark, actually, because I do CAD work and whatnot. Yeah. Okay, so we prepared a couple of questions that we want to address to you guys so we can like start a discussion, and I think we should start going through them.
Would you like to ask the first question?
If I want to ask the first question, sure, mate. The first thing that came to mind is you guys having a different perspective and everything. I was curious about what you guys would change in the first competition.
Well, I think first of all, first is a bit of a pun there.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have to have real competitions again. It was really rough having virtual competitions this year. But if I were to change in general something about first competitions, if anything, I would like them to be longer and have more opportunities for team-to-team connection and more opportunities for professional outreach, so we can meet more new people and get even more out of the experience.
So you'd basically like more competitions and everything, so more getting people together.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
More connection.
yeah, we're also clearly a very competitive team. So any time for us to, kind of show off, compete against others would be really like that. But yeah, I don't know.
That's in the spirit of the game. It's understandable.
Yeah.
Speaking of differences between you guys, how do you coordinate your departments? How do you create that synergy?
Do you have someone like managing your team and everything like that?
So we have an amazing coach who is able to run and manage our team. I know for the hardware, we have a hardware lead, and we set ourselves in a general direction. We kind of divide up different projects, different modules that each person works on, and we can kind of split the design process, but everyone will typically end up at least looking and giving feedback on everyone else's different designs. Sophia can talk more about the software structure.
Yeah, so software-wise, we also have a software lead, and I guess it's also kind of, a modular format, because we have people working on like our chassis programming for autonomous, we have people working on ToborTech programming, we have people working on like camera identification, so like all that stuff. So I'd say it's kind of like hardware where we have all our individual projects, and then we come together for meetings a lot of the time to just go over everything so everybody knows what's going on and everything.
How big is your guys' team? You sound like it sounds like there would be a lot of people involved. How many of you are there?
This year we have 11, well, this year, the season's kind of over, but this year we have 11 members, and then we have 2 graduating this year, and, or actually 1 graduating this year, and 2 coming on next year already committed.
At least 2 coming on.
Well, next year, maybe more, depending on.
I got it.
usually ranges from around, I'd say like 10 to 15 members year by year, most of the time. So yeah, we do a pretty big team, and we do. I don't know. It's definitely a hassle or it's definitely a lot of work to be able to manage everyone. But we do. I don't know. We have kind of been able to do that through hardware and different leads, stuff like that. It's kind of like we're a team kind of just broken down into smaller teams. So yeah, something like that, I guess.
I think that's the only way you can make something like this work out, honestly.
Yeah.
How old are you guys? Like talking about the team, how old is the team? Like what year are you in and everything like that?
We just finished our 7th year, right?
Yeah, next year will be our 8th year as a team collectively.
So pretty much all of our original members have graduated. They are in college now, and one of our strengths as a team is our ability to pass knowledge from generation to generation. So I'm a second-year member, Sophia's a third-year member, Aiden's a second-year member, but we all know what we're doing, and we all are carrying the team forward. For example, we just won our state championships, which is the first time we've won as a team after 7 years. And we've just let go of a lot of seniors the last 2 years. So it's a testament to our ability to pass on knowledge and to continue improving.
I got it. Yeah, that sounds great. You guys are a lot older in the game than us. You got a lot of experience, I'm guessing.
So the next question is how did you cope during the pandemic? Because we got
a lot of issues, at the beginning when we were getting used to this.
It's been a difficult time for us.
So with the pandemic, our team went fully online. Like we basically went cold turkey, full on online as soon as we started quarantining, which was definitely a lot. But we figured out a lot of cool new stuff. So like software-wise, I know a little bit more about that. We found like cool apps where we can share the phone screen so we can see the driver station on our computer basically and transfer all that information. We made a simulator of all things so we can like map the robot map to our, I guess, basically just Google and simulate our chassis. So a lot of stuff like that. Hardware-wise, Mark can talk a little bit more about his experience with that, but our coach was so wonderful to put together packages for us and drive them to our houses so we can assemble them alone safely, obviously, and then move it to somebody else's house. And we used a lot of different meeting software, Zoom, Google Meets, Microsoft Teams. It was definitely a challenge. We had a lot of challenges, just like you guys, but
so hardware.
It was just a lot of finding new resources.
So hardware-wise, you were just passing around the robot, basically. So everyone did their job.
Kind of. We were more focused on kind of splitting up the robot. So, for example, I have a claw here from our wobble go grabber. This is an ancient claw at this point. We don't use anything that looks like it now. But I have a 3D printer here, so I would print this, right, and I would test it on the module. I have a PVC pipe that's the same as the wobble goal, and I could test it here, and when that was good I could send it on to the actual robot. During our meetings for hardware, I think we're a bit different than software. Software does a lot more individualized meetings on specific tasks. We focus a lot more on discussion, so we use a program called Google Jamboard. So we'll be on our meeting, and in a separate window we can pull up what is pretty much a virtual whiteboard, and we can all draw at the same time to convene our ideas. And largely, we already were somewhat used to a virtual setting, and we were able to take advantage of it in multiple ways because we used to mentor teams in remote locations such as like Taiwan and Texas, and we were already used to having those virtual meetings going. So that was kind of a good introduction. So when we finally got to this point, we already knew what we needed to do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I feel like in like a broader sense, overall, I think especially for the pandemic, the biggest thing that I think I saw, because I actually know a couple members from different teams, especially throughout Oregon. And I think a lot of us, because I think the FTC community is so connected, we talk to each other a lot. And what I found, and I think what I'm sure Mark and Sophia can also talk about this, is that the biggest thing that we kind of did over the pandemic that I don't know if a lot of other teams did is like really like a lot of consistency in our meetings. So like basically, even throughout the global pandemic, what we did a lot of the time is we would have like consistent meetings, like every Friday, every Sunday, or not every Sunday, but like every Friday we have a whole team meeting, and then we kind of break down into hardware would meet like twice a week-ish. I think software would also meet twice a week, and we kind of got into it's like a schedule essentially for the season, which I think with a lot of other teams, because it was COVID and the season was definitely FTC in general was kind of lacking a bit this year in terms of like all the competitions, everything like that, because a lot of stuff was delayed. They kind of, I guess, slacked a bit on their schedule. That sounds kind of like I don't mean to like diss all the
it was
like other
really
FTC
difficult.
teams,
You're not dissing anyone, it's the truth.
We lost most of our teams in Oregon.
Yeah, no, a lot of teams kind of fell apart, and I guess one thing that we like tried to do, I mean, which obviously it was really difficult to keep consistent meetings, so a lot of our members, I mean, we had to work really hard to kind of like keep a tight schedule, but that was one thing we kind of did that was able to help us somewhat survive through the pandemic. So yeah, I don't know.
It's hard the hardest thing was to keep people motivated.
Yeah,
And
That's what I was about to say. That I feel was the hardest thing to do this year.
yeah, because there's no in-person competitions. I mean, for us at least, because honestly, the U.S. has not been great at handling COVID, so we sorry, but a lot of the competitions this year, we were so used. I mean, obviously we're somewhat newer members, but what I personally like really loved about FTC was kind of the competitions, because it was just like a couple days, or even if you go to like Worlds, it's like a couple days as well, of just kind of going to a huge hall, talking with other teams, meeting, and kind of playing the robot game in person, which is something that like did not happen at all this year, essentially. So it was definitely really difficult for a lot of our members, myself included, to kind of like stay motivated, because it's like, I don't know, this sounds really bad actually. I should probably be like putting up a good front, but it was like, I mean, there's nothing really going on this year. Like, if I just skip this meeting, blah blah blah, like, would it be okay?
Yeah.
It was something we had to like fight through and push through to, I guess, survive. Because that's not a good mindset in the long run.
Oh, it's tough. It was tough for us as well. My biggest motivation last year was just going there and doing everything. 'Cause like, if I'm gonna work on a robot, then no one's gonna like be able to physically see and like talk about like why would I do it then?
Yeah, exactly. No, definitely. I don't know.
When the lockdown started, you had to do everything in your own room. You know, you got to do sport, you got to do homework, you got to learn for school, you got to work on the robot.
And me being on the CAD side, I was also doing 3D prints and that. It's tough.
It's
doing everything in that
depressing.
little room is like tough, mentally.
Yeah. Were you guys also kind of online fully this year, or what was your guys' system?
We weren't fully online, but like 80% basically, yeah. Everyone did their work like from home and whenever we could, because like, I don't know how it works for you guys, but we like get a rating of the COVID infectivity rate. It's like measured in every 1,000 people, I think. And based on that number, like you get a certain amount of restrictions and whatnot. So when the number would drop and where there would be, when there would be less infected people, like we'd get to be able to physically see each other. And then we would get together, but sometimes we couldn't. So it was really tough. We were on and off basically the entire season.
We know a lot of teams have done a lot of some in-person meetings. The United States, the rules are a little less clear, to say the least. We don't have too many clear rules or guidelines. It depends where you live in your city, depends in your state, and But we committed to 100% virtual almost from the beginning. So during the summer, we went 100% virtual because our state championships was canceled, so we didn't really have anything to truly work for. There was no reason to meet in person, so we got in the habit. By the time we got into our season, we were so used to it. We had the procedures in place, and we were ready to go virtual.
But I mean, even so, it was really tough.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, our meeting space got completely closed because where we usually meet, it's with the school, and when the school completely shut down, they're like, yeah, you can't come here anymore, so you're kind of screwed. So we definitely were, there was a little bit more motivation since we didn't really have a backup plan, I guess, because even meeting at a coach's house, it's, inviting like over 10 members into your home during the global pandemic is sketchy, to say the least. So yeah, I definitely agree with everything they've said. It was a challenge, but it's something we've overcome, and I'm definitely really proud of how the team handled it.
So did someone from your team set up the field, the playing field, like in the home or something?
We have 2 active fields. So one was at our coach's house, does more autonomous testing. The other one is at our driver, who actually typically runs the programs, runs the competition. He's also the hardware lead. He can fix things on site, and our teleop programmers have graciously autonomized much of that, so we can only have one driver this year.
So you guys only have one driver?
Only one driver, yeah.
A lot of teams opt for 2, so I'm curious on why you guys went for 1. Like,
Mark, we want me to answer this? I've been a driver.
Sure. Yeah, I go for it.
So this year, obviously, with the pandemic, we're not able to meet in person at all. So we just figured we'd opt for 1 just so we didn't have to coordinate a lot of driver training. And part of the reason why we were more willing to do that is in past years, we've been working on this thing called, I guess combos is what we call them. So we string together a bunch of the tasks, so you can basically like press left trigger on the controller with one of the letter buttons or any other button combination, and it'll, let's say, lift up the hopper, swing the rings into the shooter, and then shoot 3 rings. So instead of having a second driver do all of that while one is driving the chassis, our first driver and our only driver can drive the chassis around. And then just like while he's doing the joysticks, he can press any combination of different buttons in order to do different combinations. And so with this, we've been kind of doing it the last 2 years before this season. And so with a little bit more knowledge of that, we were able to add that onto our current driving and have only 1 driver instead of 2.
so you've basically tried to like eliminate human error and like miscommunication between the drivers.
We've
Helps
tried.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
We definitely try our best on that. That's slightly, yeah. I mean, matches are still very chaotic, but it's definitely
It's still very difficult. A lot of unpredictability, but it's easier. It's easier this year than some others with 1 driver, because if you're having, the only place you can have conflicts in your head, right? So it's much easier if everything is autonomized, or at least the majority is autonomized.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
One thing I'm curious about is I was thinking about, like, yesterday I was like, yeah, we're going to have this podcast and whatnot. And I was thinking about how quickly do you guys get your parts when you order them? Because it takes months for us to get them.
The field setup or your parts?
Any of them, basically. Are they different?
Everything basically that you need.
So for us, it takes about a week typically to get parts. For the field and the game setup earlier in the year, it can take up to a month, which is hard on prototyping. Typically, that's very much backlogged. But parts typically take about a week. But now we're doing more of self-fabrication. So it used to be that we'd have to buy parts as we go. And we don't have to as much because we now have a significant hardware repository after we've been here 7 years, right? So we have a lot of hardware that's sitting around that we can pull from, and we're using 3D printing more. That also helps a lot. If I don't have a part, I can just recreate it. Like, for example, we made a lot of, our shooter was at a 22-degree angle position this year, and we changed it around a lot. Instead of buying specific parts to change that angle, we just printed like a bracket that mounts on an X-rail, and that's what we did every single time.
All right, I got it. I think when we got our parts, it took like how many months? We were supposed to get them in like October, like late October, early November, I think, and we got them in like January. Yeah, something like that. So we ordered them in like back in September. We first ordered we made 2 orders this year, and the first batch was ordered in like September, maybe late September, I think, at worst early October, but we got them in January, I think, like in the mid of January, something like that.
Yeah.
15th or something. I'm not sure about the date, but yeah, it took a couple of months, and that sucks.
What company were you ordering from, out of curiosity?
Mainly Rev we got, this year,
Rev?
I think. Yeah.
So what I might suggest then for you guys, if possible, I know there a lot of shipping delays this year that were not normal compared to other years because a lot of shipping, like all the passenger flights over transatlantic are canceled, right? In the U.S., we have most of our flights and freight operations going through, but that was a significant portion of transatlantic freight capacity, and that could have potentially messed it up. So I would look, if possible, for local providers of very similar materials. Like we only buy the Rev hubs now from Rev Robotics. Typically, we buy our servos from, let's say, GoBuilda, motors, also GoBuilda, but you can also buy them from Andy Mark, for example. And for a lot of fabricated parts, like just general extrusion material, you can order that in bulk. You don't have to buy it specifically from any manufacturer that's associated with First.
Yeah, of course. If you want to just get some beams or something, that's all right. But when you want to get some motors or something, and then it sucks. We got some GoBuilda motors, I think, like in March, something like that. And we found a retailer in Italy, luckily, and he got it to us in like 2 weeks, and that was great. We found a way around it.
Yeah, that's about as long as they can take here sometimes. Sometimes they're out of stock of specific motors. So I would just, what servos do you use mostly?
The ones Rev makes again, yeah.
One's Rev.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've built up a bit of a repository over the years of a few motors and servos. So I would just try to reuse those the best you can.
That's what we try to do, yeah.
Order more when you know you're going to need them, because servos inevitably break. Quite a few of ours break. We used to use Swerve Drive, which I hope you've seen. It was very impressive. And Swerve Drive was notorious for killing a ton of servos. I have a servo here in my room that's completely burned through from Swerve Drive. So
As soon as you said
it happens.
As soon as you said the word servo, everyone's laughing. Like, did you guys have a lot of mess ups?
Oh yes.
At a soccer,
yeah.
I'm just driving, and we go to change the battery, and I just see like a plume of smoke.
Ooh.
It was like my first year. I'm so confused with something. Like, the robot's on fire, and the plastic on the servo was just completely melted through. And I think we went through like 8 servos in a month. I feel like we went through a lot of servos.
That's a lot.
Must have been a bad month.
How'd you guys kill all of them? Like 8 in a month?
Well, so for example, one of the problems we had last year on our robot, so we had kind of a rectangular frame, right? In our Swerve Drive, it's mounted on a pretty high frame and it needs to turn 180. And there was a bracket that was holding 2 extrusions together that cut into that space, and at certain angles, it would press into that bracket, and it would sometimes just
Inevitably break.
That was an example of a problem, but there have been multiple others. Like we've crashed into elements on the field, and that has stressed the servos or shocked the servos enough to permanently damage them.
Yeah, we have our ways of breaking things.
But yeah, that aside, if I'm assuming you guys probably use a different drivetrain, such as Mechanism or 6-wheel, something similar, right? You use motors completely. Yeah, so then you probably should be okay, as long as you're doing your math and making sure you're not over torquing your servos, which does happen sometimes. We had a bit of that problem last year, but not too much.
Next topic that we want to cover is a bit of the marketing side. So how do you reach out to sponsors in the USA?
Wait, sponsors?
Sponsors, yeah.
Oh, we could talk about Create for PDX.
Yeah, so most of our money this year, it doesn't come from individual member contributions. Here is our second biggest sponsor right here, Xerox. I can take the time to promote them. Most of our money comes from companies and organizations. They recognize what we do, and they donate to us. Member contributions were very, very low this year. I think we only had new members do the standard contribution because we did have leftover budget after last year. But this summer, we started an outreach to create personal protective equipment or face shields. Here's a example of one right here. It's a custom design that we have now. And while that's a completely different topic, the company, Xerox, recognized what we did, and they chose to make a contribution to us. So Intel and Xerox are our two biggest sponsors, and they're typically pretty consistent. Xerox is a lot bigger this year than normal, but we get most of our sponsorship through outreach, and it's not. A lot of it is grants. We do apply for grants, but it's making sure that you present what you're doing online through social media, through a website, or even word of mouth. And that if that gets to companies, you can have very good results. That's what we found.
Yeah, big social media presence on different platforms is actually really good because companies, not only does it kind of allow you a different outreach to other people because they're a lot more open. But yeah, I know companies will definitely jump on that a lot. So yeah, that's something we've definitely been doing.
Right.
That's what we've been relying on as well. We've had the lowest personal contributions as well this year, I think. I'm not sure what the sum was last year, but this year it was really low. We started doing ecologizing stuff. My English is not working. I've had very few hours of sleep last night, so that's why. We've started doing a lot of events trying to get people's attention, so that's our main way of sustaining the team. We've done a lot of ecologizing stuff.
Yeah, I think.
I'm trying. And we've had a lot of events like teaching kids about robotics and whatnot, and that's what got us in the news, and it helped a lot.
That is a great outreach opportunity,
Yeah, awesome.
and also a great business opportunity right there. People will always support that. If you're teaching, the people will typically always support that. So.
Everything that involves kids is just the perfect thing to go out for.
It's some of the best parts of FIRST. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do as much as we normally would do this year because typically we have multiple in-person events. We go and teach at, we have software workshops and maybe even hardware workshops typically, which have to go digital this year. But for me, those are some of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
We luckily could still had them this year, unlike you, because we could do a lot of stuff in different months. I think we've had 3 events with the kids where they played with a robot. We taught them how to 3D model and everything. Yeah, it was fun. Those things are really fun to me.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, actually. Oh my god.
If you guys could tell us about one of your favorite events that you've done, what would that be? In the past years, of course.
Go ahead.
I have my personal favorite because I was the one that taught it. But we had an on-bot workshop, which it's like a simpler version of Android Studio, which is what we use for our programming. So it's all online, and then you connect it to the phones. It's a lot more simple. There's a lot less complicated, class interface and all that stuff with Java. So that was really fun. We got to go and screen share and present, and then we got everybody on their laptops, and we were able to, show them how to do stuff. And then we brought our mini bots, and they were able to drive them around and code their own stuff. And it was really awesome to, see their faces light up when the robots worked and they could drive them around. And that was with older kids. But another one of my favorites was when we went to our library, and it was a bunch of toddlers and their older siblings. I think the oldest kids were 8, and we stacked blocks with our robot because the challenge that year was stacking. And
that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, and the library had these little foam blocks, and we would throw them at kids, and they would catch them, and they would feed them to the robot. Yeah. That was really awesome.
Yeah, side note, those kids were brutal, I have to say. Sorry, this is so random, but I remember, so we had the kids could drive the robots, and we had a bunch of different foam stuff. Dude, those kids just started throwing them at us, and it got so crazy.
Well, it
was a fun
didn't get
event,
that
though,
crazy.
obviously.
I think what you're remembering as crazy is we were doing an example of stacking about an hour into the event, and our slides snapped.
Oh yeah.
It was an emergency evacuation to robot surgery, but
yeah, that was not an intended goal there, but yeah.
Never goes perfectly. That's part of the thrill.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
One of the main hardware problems we had this year was Hub completely disconnecting and killing its Wi-Fi, and we found the solution to the problem with months of actually trying. Did you guys have any similar problems like that?
Yes. we had a very similar problem. We've also struggled with this problem. Last year, at our super qualifying tournament, we disconnected from our controller, I think at least 5 times.
Oh my god.
4 or 5 times. It was very bad for us because we were expecting to go in and our robot was doing fabulous. Our drivers were trained, and we disconnected quite a few times. So that's a huge problem. I'd be interested to hear your solution because I'm not sure if because we could only simulate that with a large group of robots. We haven't been able to simulate that this year. So I'm curious on your guys' solution to that.
So I think it started disconnecting in like February or something like that. And the first thing that I thought about was like it's maybe the Wi-Fi in the school or wherever we were at, like interfering and whatnot. And it turned out that we eventually like, shut off all the Wi-Fi in our school and it didn't help anything. And we were stuck thinking about like why would it just disconnect? I also like made a bunch of posts on Reddit and asked Rev themselves, and no one could really help us. And the second troubleshooting was. We had like the intake was basically a metal ramp that would sometimes like rub on the floor and it would charge itself electrostatically, and that would create problems. But upon solving that, it still wouldn't work. So what we found was the main reason is that we had the motors, like the 4 motors responsible for moving, like you guys said about that, talked about that system. We had the 4 motors, and they had their power cables. No, they had the power cables like wrapped around them, and that would create basically a huge electromagnet, and that would create a lot of charge that would make the hub stop. And also, you were talking about the gears.
Yeah.
At one point, we had also like a 2-to-1 gear reduction on the movement motors, and some of those gears were sometimes rubbing on the playing field, and that would charge itself. That would charge the robot as well. So we did all these 4 things, and now it's all right. So I'm guessing it's probably the last one, but I'm not sure.
That's a very good example of process right there. We didn't get that far. I think we installed a grounding strap eventually, and that's what our kind of solution we assumed would work. But that raises a very good question. I think that's a problem a lot of teams struggle with, and it's very difficult to troubleshoot. And that's amazing you guys were able to troubleshoot.
And no one's talking about it. Like no one could help us when we hit the problem. Like there were no posts like on Reddit or whatever helping us. Rev couldn't help us either.
It seemed like we were the only ones in the world that got that problem.
Yeah. So it's amazing to hear that you guys had that too. I thought that our hub was completely defective or something.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what to do anymore at one point.
It happens to other people too. It's happened to a few teams in Oregon. Like you can list on one hand pretty much, but it does happen. And yeah, that raises a good point. And if you have a good solution to that, you should definitely put some resources out there. We'd be happy to collaborate with any way we can in our data, because I think that's a problem that has not been solved for a lot of people.
Right.
So the main thing I would suggest, if I was to like sum it up, is remove any metal rubbing on the playing field. I think that just makes it work.
Yeah. It was a human problem.
Yeah, it was human error.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was human error. Well, we didn't think about that. Who would think about it?
Nobody.
I'm no engineer, but I wouldn't think about that at first sight.
We were planning on getting us an electrician to help us out because we just ran out of solutions.
Yeah, but luckily we solved it in the last day, I think. Yeah.
That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was quite an experience.
We should put some stuff out now. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I really wasn't thinking that anyone else was like experiencing it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone else.
I think it's more common than you think. I think a lot of teams maybe hide it, or they might not even know until they get to competition. Because for us, a lot of it was bumping into other robots and getting discharged that way.
Yeah.
Which that's at least what we suspected was the problem. And if you guys seem to have a list of potential solutions, I don't think a lot of teams know if that could be a problem for them potentially.
At first, I was thinking about a Wi-Fi problem, but then I realized like we were at the. Basically, I don't know if it works the same way in the USA, but we have a bunch of regional championships. Like Romania is divided into 3 and whatever. So we went to that, and there were like over 60 teams or something like that at the regional championship. And then there, the robot never disconnected, and it was basically the same thing. And I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't disconnect there, but it does here when there's way less interference, Wi-Fi, and everything. Luckily, we solved it.
Well, maybe you had a very lucky day, or maybe there is a difference in the field, but either way, you solved the problem.
Yeah. So the next question is more personal. If you were to live in another country, what would that be?
And why?
And why, of course. Who would like to go first?
Mark, I think you should start.
I've talked a lot. I think one of you should go
I
first.
volunteer Aiden. I definitely think Aiden.
Yeah, Aiden should go first, I think.
All right.
Shoot, I'm on the spot now. I honestly don't know. I feel like as Americans, we constantly bash the U.S. a lot, but generally, I don't know where else I would really think of. I don't know where else I would go. Probably because I'm a second generation Chinese American, right? So I actually, despite like I am like Asian, but I'm not really that in touch with culture. So honestly, I'd probably, if I were to live anything, if not, I don't know if I were to live anywhere else, I guess I'd probably move somewhere, maybe like China, somewhere like that, or maybe in a bigger city, honestly, because I'd be interested in getting a bigger feel for kind of the culture and everything like that. As well as I definitely want to improve like my Chinese because it's terrible right now. And yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to learn Chinese for a while now, and I cannot do it. But yeah, that's definitely something that would help.
Is your Chinese better than Mark's Romanian?
Oh yeah, it's much better than my Romanian.
Oh.
So see, the issue is it's like comparing like, no offense, Mark, of course, but it's like comparing like 0.1 to 0%. I'm just kidding. But Mark Romanian is probably. It depends on what you look at it, because I'm like right now, since we're high school students, they offer like a Chinese course. I'm like taking like the very, very beginner level, and I honestly don't know how good Mark's Romanian is actually.
I can understand it from the people in my household who sometimes speak Romanian, but I can't really speak it. It's one of the things you can kind of learn to understand. But
Most people, when they learn a new language, they learn to understand it first and then to speak it.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're good. You're on the good path.
Back
On the question.
Subject of countries. We deviated a bit there. I would probably choose either Canada or maybe the UK, somewhere where I can speak the language. But if language was not a factor, the world is endless, I think. For example, Taiwan, Japan, Romania is a great country. I've been there. I went there a few years ago, 2019. Great experience. The world is boundless. I think there are so many great options now.
Very optimistic answer, I have to say.
He sounds like the type of optimistic person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I don't know. Sophia, I'm curious. I actually don't know. But yeah.
I mean, I kind of have a similar answer to Mark's, where it's like, I'd love to go all over, but I'd probably have to pick Ukraine just because all my family lives there, all my extended family lives there. I get to practice my Ukrainian because, unlike Mark, I do speak the language. And also, I just really love just the environment there. I love Lviv. It's a great place when I visited. But I'd also love just like Spain, France. I think just broadly, just like one half of Europe at each time. Go to Eastern and then Western.
Yeah, you should like go to both and then compare them, because you're gonna find some really interesting things.
Yeah.
I find it really fascinating that fascinating that we just got in touch with you. You know, you're an American team, and then two of them have like their roots so close to us.
And we have another member who is from where's Sasha from? St. Petersburg?
She literally moved like.
Or Moscow, I forget, but also Eastern Europe. So we have that representation on our team. My mom is from the Yash area, so.
Moldova.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it's not the complete opposite side, but it's pretty far away from us.
We're from Transylvania. So
have you heard about Transylvania? That's really
that has a lot of American folklore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's might be one of the more well-known parts of Romania.
Of American.
Yeah.
I was curious about when you guys were talking earlier about how you're in your 7th year. We're just in our 2nd year, and just hearing about like 7th year, that sounds awesome. I was thinking about how do you guys plan on like where's the team gonna go after you leave, or what do you plan for the future?
So our coach has 2 sons. So the first one, he graduated last year, and the second one he's our age, and she is leaning towards potentially retiring after he graduates, but that doesn't mean that the team will just disband them. We are taking on, for certain, a new high school freshman, a person a year younger than us next year. So we know that we are going to have a continuation of this team, and so far we've done a pretty good job of passing on knowledge, and that's the biggest thing for us, is passing on experience, passing on what we know, passing on our expertise and our strengths. And there's no reason for us to stop that process. And I think we can go on for a long time, even after we leave.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot of, like, kind of, I don't know how to explain it. I guess I don't really know much, but from what I've seen, I'm not necessarily in that process, but it's definitely a lot of, I guess, our members now are kind of reaching out to people who are kind of younger than us. I mean, we do the things like we teach kids like robotic stuff occasionally to get them kind of, interested in that. And then it's kind of just the process of choosing younger people and kind of just creating a legacy and just a sequence of people who will hopefully sustain itself even after we leave. So yeah.
Yeah, we run on the philosophy that new members are full members. Pretty much. The first few months, it is mostly training, but last year is my first year. I was able to work on almost all of the hardware. I worked mostly on the intake. I did probably most of the iterations behind the intake, and that was my first year. So our software lead now, she is in her 2nd year. So her first year last year was completely learning, and now she is our software lead. So we have that rapid progression of passing on knowledge, and that's important to us. I think some teams are under the impression that new members are kind of more in the background and more observation position. We put them pretty much front and center right away.
And that seems right to me. I agree with your philosophy. That's just the right way to go. One thing I find really like kind of sad about the competition, I think, if I could say my opinion, is that there's a very I don't know how to put it, like there's not enough years to like take part in this. You've only got this limited like time span, and you're gonna be a beginner for like at least a year, and then when you get better at it, it's just such a short time for you to actually like work. I find it a way too narrow. Like there needs to be a bigger time gap.
Yeah, no, that's true. Oh wait. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I got it.
Everyone got that. So, with this experience that you've gathered over these 7 years, what would you guys say that is the most important thing in teamwork?
I think it's that, like, for example, I remember not this year, we weren't able to do it as effectively because at the beginning it was a bit harder to get everyone there at the same time. We figured it out about a month in. But I remember my first year on the first full meeting after they launched the season information and everything, we all went and sat down on a huge table. There were 15 of us that year. And we took 1 minute for each module, each game element, and we drew designs. And we talked about every single design. So every single person was part of the design process, whether they're hardware, whether they're software. Everyone started on an equal footing. And I think that's important. Even if you are a lead, if you are in charge of maybe your department, it's a leadership position. It doesn't mean that you do everything. It doesn't mean that everything is your responsibility.
About, I don't know if this necessarily pertains to teamwork, but it's kind of growing closer together with your team. I don't know if anyone else felt that, but like I feel like a lot of us, especially on ToborTech, throughout the season at least, I feel like our teamwork does grow as we get closer to the competitions, and not only because obviously we kind of have to like we all obviously have to like turn up like hours and everything before competitions, but I feel like in a sense, from what I've seen at least last year, obviously not as prevalent this year because of COVID, was that throughout the seasons, I mean, with our team especially, it was a lot of, I guess, time spent together. Because for ToborTech last year, it was conservatively around 8 to 12 hours a week that we would spend together. At least, obviously, we're divided to hardware, software, but we're all in the same room. We can walk around and talk to each other. And in a sense, I guess this is kind of my own personal experience, is that our team kind of grew together as a community, like a closer group of people. And because of that, we were definitely a lot more cohesive. We were able to communicate with each other a lot more effectively because we were like more comfortable with each other. Like I remember initially there were times, because I was a rookie member last year, I was trying to do hardware and I was hopeless at it. I'm still terrible at it actually. But I would often be kind of, in the beginning, I was really afraid to ask for help with anyone because I was like, oh god, there are all these like, everyone was so tall and scary, and I was like, yo, they all hate me because I don't know what I'm doing. But then that was always the beginning of the season, but then kind of as the months progressed and as it got closer, whenever I got assigned something, this is just an example of course, but like I would find myself being able to actually talk more about it with everyone because I was more comfortable with them. And I think that having that sense of connection and being able to bond and be closer to the team or to everyone else on the team is really essential for teamwork, in my opinion at least. I mean, I don't know. That's just what I've seen so far. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just really like
when you get a bunch of people together for like that much time, I think it's inevitable to like they're gonna get together eventually. They're gonna like learn to communicate better and everything because they gotta work together. And when you're put in the spot to do something, you're basically just gonna do it one way or another. And over the months, you definitely grow like closer together. I've seen that as well because I've only been in this for like a year and a half. I think I wasn't in the team from the start, but I started out as a volunteer just doing basic things, and I grew into it a lot, and I got to do hardware and printing and everything. I just basically advanced, like you guys said. You're just gonna get better and advance and learn to be a better teammate.
I think one of the most important things to pay attention to is some of the most transformative moments on your team are going to be moments of failure. I think SQT last year was a very transformational moment for us when our robot continuously failed multiple times. It was not a fun moment there, but you can treat failure two ways. You can either treat it as a divisive thing. You can assign blame, say this person's module didn't work, right? This person's code didn't work. Or you can see it as a time to come closer together, to grow from it. And I think that's the most important thing. Nobody's getting yelled at after a bad judging presentation or a bad failure. It's what can we learn from it? That's the most important thing. You have to feel safe to fail. And most progress can come from failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in the end, we're all just a bunch of robotics nerds, so we bond over something. That was a terrible joke, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, it sure was a joke, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
Yeah, I know, that's true. I mean, there's definitely some truth to that. I don't know. like we all definitely have common interests, and I don't know, when you're actually able to express it in something like FTC and Verse in general throughout just the entire community, honestly, who are also passionate about the process of like teamwork, manufacturing, engineering, it's definitely like a really fun experience. And I think it definitely allows me at least to work with everyone else better as a team. So yeah, that's something I'm really.
My first impression when I got into the team or I heard about FTC was that everyone's gonna be such huge nerds and I'm not gonna be able to like communicate with anyone and they're gonna be so boring. But upon like going to these competitions and all those things, I found it to be really fun and it really exceeded my expectations by a lot. It was a lot more fun and the people are great. Just meeting people with common interests is awesome, but they exceeded my expectations a lot.
I think it gets a bad rep. Like I saw these bright green jackets and I thought, well, that's weird. Right? Who goes around in a big group wearing a bunch of bright green jackets? And it was the weirdest thing to me. So, but then you get into it, you get used to it. I mean, I think it gets a bad reputation for that, but I don't see people who are considered nerdy or whatever, I don't see them any differently at this point, right? Most of my friends sure are in similar math classes, science classes to me, but not everyone necessarily is on the team. Some people have different strengths. Some people enjoy maybe writing more. Some people are going out with their friends 3 times a week, right? We have a diverse array of people. Regardless.
Yeah.
The real strategy is just to have all of your friends on the team, so all of the meetings that you do are just hangouts.
Yeah.
And that's how you
I know.
Right.
That's awesome.
Well, you all become friends, so.
That is true. Yeah, no. I feel like FTC in general gets like, or not just FTC, just robotics. I feel like just the word robotics, you often think of just like this nerdy person who and everything like that. But I don't know, it gets a really bad. But in reality, that's kind of honestly not trying to expose myself. But I also initially thought that when I was joining the team, because I knew like everyone I knew was like so smart, and I was like, oh god, everyone's gonna be like what you said. But like when you actually go to the competitions, when I've seen, it's like it's so chill, right? Like everyone's super nice, and we're all really passionate about it, right? But besides, we're all passionate about like robotics, but we're also kind of just to an extent, I think, normal people who are just, I don't know, it's super cool to just talk to everyone because it's definitely breaking a stereotype that I initially thought.
Exactly. You've been kind of quiet.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
you've been kind of quiet.
I'm kind of tired.
I'm tired as well, but that's no excuse.
Sorry. I put myself together. Moving on to the next question. What do you think are the advantages of competing in America over Romania?
That's an interesting question because it also matters where you're competing in America. So some places are better to compete in America than others. I know, for instance, Texas is very difficult and very competitive. So Texas as a state, it's a large state. I'm sure you've heard plenty of news stories, especially this year, come out of Texas. Potentially, it's one of the more known states in America. Maybe not for always the best reasons, but it's a very big state, and I know there are multiple what are called super regionals that go to Worlds, for example. And in our state, Oregon, we have one state, and that state from there goes to Worlds. I think for Washington, with the state right above us, it's the same thing. We used to have what is the super regionals, and that was much harder. But afterwards, it became much easier. And while Oregon is one of the more advanced states in robotics, it is easier if you do have less competition to get that advancement. And it's different wherever you are in the country. But another thing is you have more resources with more volume. So the more FTC teams there are in the area, the more resources you're going to have, the more people know it, the more schools know it, the more companies are going to give you money, and the more mentorship opportunities you have, the more you can learn. So one of the fascinating things I've noticed about Romania is there are quite a few FTC teams in Romania that I have been kind of following up on a bit. Which is great because in other parts of the world, there aren't many. I know in Europe, there aren't nearly as many as the US, but Romania, amazingly has one of them, I think, more dense areas at FTC. I think that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, there's a couple
harder.
hundred teams, I think. Yeah.
It might be a bit harder for advancement, but I think overall, more volume is a good thing.
I agree with you on that. Yeah. I never thought about this, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It might be harder to notice because here, United States is such a large country that it's very different from location to location. Like, I think, for example, if there's an FTC team in Alaska, you might have to travel down south, which is not even connected to the rest of the United States, to fly over Canada to get down and compete potentially to qualify for Worlds. I know in sports that's often the case, and it's much more difficult to come from such a remote area. But at the same time, there can be some advantages. Redneck's Robotics is from the state of Montana, which has very few FTC teams, and it's quite a large state. It's a very low density state, and they've been very successful at Worlds in the past. So there are different strengths and weaknesses of every area. That's just the reality.
Last year at our regionals, we had a Turkish team come over, and that's when I also realized that maybe some places aren't as, like, how could I say, like, they're not as big into FTC, so I don't, like, give them a bad name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think FIRST is expanding internationally, and that's great. I hope it spreads to more and more countries. It's great that Turkish teams are competing. I don't think there are enough of them in Turkey to have their own real league, unfortunately. But yeah.
And I'm not even sure how that will work, because, like, half of them are in, half of Turkey is basically in Asia, and then the other half is in Europe. So how would they, like, split it up?
I don't know.
I think most of the teams would likely be from Istanbul, maybe some from Ankara, but
most likely,
just take the whole country to one.
As we were going on this, like, pattern of, like, describing things and all the questions that we've asked, if you guys had to describe the entire FIRST, like, challenge in one word, what would it be? Aiden's kind of hesitant.
I've completely forgotten what the first challenge was this year. Probably, actually, you guys should probably go first. I'm not gonna have a good answer.
I know Sophia has a good answer for this one.
Do I don't know. FTC is so much. Like, FIRST is so. I had to choose one word. I'm gonna steal it out of the FIRST handbook. I wish I could say gracious professionalism, but that's not one word.
No.
So I will say competition. I feel like FIRST has used that a lot. It's like cooperative competition, I guess. I feel like that kind of encompasses. There's so much cooperation between teams. There's the friendly aspect, and there's also competition. It's friendly competition, basically. I feel like if I had to choose one word, I feel like that's an okay way to describe it. I'm going to put Mark on the spot next. I think that's good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the best word to describe FIRST, even though I've never heard it before.
I was like, whoa.
It's basically cooperation and competition smashed into one in the English language, which I didn't. We have a bunch of weird words, but that's I think my favorite part about FIRST is it is a competition, but you don't walk in and you don't start looking around and saying, "Oh, I wonder what they're doing." You go and talk to them, and you go connect with them, and you share knowledge, which I think is the best part. You're not trying to hide from each other. I know some FIRST teams still do. They still try to hide what they do, and I think that's the wrong way to approach things. It's not about, is someone going to copy me? If someone is inspired from your design, that's a compliment. That means that you have spread knowledge to other teams, and that's just as important as succeeding on the field in FIRST.
It's one of the core values of FIRST, after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Aiden. You gotta go now.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'm nervous now. Okay. I would probably this. Hopefully, this doesn't. Hopefully, no one from first uses this. I was gonna say confusing, but I realized that sounds kind of negative. But I feel like I'll say, how about I'll say complex. Because kind of like what Mark was saying, there is, I guess there's so many layers to first that I initially didn't realize. Because personally, like before joining FTC, I did a lot of like I did some competitive stuff. I was on like a chess team, and that entire like a lot of people there. I'm not trying to generalize, of course, but we're all secretive. We kind of kept to ourselves. And this is kind of like what Mark was saying as well. And I was kind of used to that mindset of going into FTC. Because like, okay, well, this is a competition. I have my team. I see these other people. They're our enemies now, so let's win now. But I didn't realize how much of like an actual community of people that there were. Like, I didn't realize how much people actually, like, teams helped each other, how much we actually were able to communicate. And honestly, it took a bit for me to warm up to that general idea of like, oh yeah, yes, they're technically like opposing teams, but we're all passionate about this one thing. We all really enjoy robotics, so we're all kind of community together. But I feel like after I got it, I would just say, yeah, no. And maybe my word should be community, because that's something I've always appreciated about FTC. It's just the people and everyone that's like also passionate about the same things. Because that was just really cool for me to see. And yeah.
At first, when I was getting into it personally, I saw like pictures of championships and everything, and at first I compared it to like F1 teams or like rally championships, and where everyone's so secretive and trying to keep it like away from everyone else, they're basically trying to win because there's a lot of money and everything involved. But it's a lot more interesting and fascinating that I think first, like as an organization and as a, how would you say that? Basically as an organization, they were smart when they made the championships, because it puts you in the interesting position of like, basically everyone is your enemy at the end of the day, but you're gonna have to, when the events were like done physically, you would have to like get along with other people, because you would eventually get in alliances, and you couldn't be like mean to everyone, because what if they're gonna get in your alliance? You're gonna have to somehow balance it, and I think that's what's promoting the cooperative aspect of it. Because if you would just like compete 1v1 with everyone else, it wouldn't be the same, I think. Yeah. No one would be as good to other. Yeah, they would just hate each other. Everyone would be like against each other, and that's not good.
No, yeah.
Pure hatred.
That would be a really toxic community.
Exactly.
I am really glad. Like we were able to actually. There is so much cooperation. I actually didn't even realize that. But even like the tournament structure of FTC is we have like alliances and we have teams. That is actually really cool, and I think
if you cannot work together, you cannot win. Pretty much.
Exactly.
That's what the best part about it, the competition, the game design, in my opinion, is if you can't cooperate, you can't win. You have to be able to work together. And that's very similar to the professional world. I'll bring in an example. 2 defense contractors in the United States, Boeing and Lockheed Martin, they're huge competitors on fighter jets, like a bunch of defense systems that are worth billions and billions of dollars. But they have come together to launch rockets because they couldn't afford it by themselves on their own, and it was so much easier for them to share their expertise and knowledge to do the same thing and work together. So you're going to be forced to do that in the professional world, and that's first really trains you how to do that like no other competition.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. Even though confusing wasn't Aiden's...
the record show that we definitely love first.
Even though
confusing wasn't
his final answer, I related that. It is confusing indeed.
it can get a bit confusing. Yeah. Especially like some of the rules, like we still had a bunch of problems understanding that, this year, you've got the wobble goals, and we never knew for sure, like up until now, that if you can start with a wobble goal on your robot, and we weren't sure if it would have to fit within those like dimensions or not, and that was really confusing to us, and we had to get into a meeting with like people from First to actually explain it to us.
Wait, out of curiosity, do you guys use the FTC forums at all?
Yeah, a bit.
Fair enough.
They were not too active this year.
Yeah, no, they really weren't. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know how much we use the forums, but generally, I mean, you can sometimes ask questions there. I don't know. Usually, there's some random like admin or.
It's a good platform to get official answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I found Reddit to be more helpful because people from like manufacturers would just get back to us from there, and that's just way easier.
That's true. Reddit is amazing. I agree.
Another great platform.
I don't know. All I know is game manuals are also really confusing.
Read the game. Everyone on the team, the first thing we do when the game comes out, we print off a bunch of copies of the game manuals, and everyone has to read them. Everyone reads game manual 2. Not everyone may read game manual 1 because that is more of like hardware, software specific rules. It's not necessarily game rules, but everyone reads game manual 2. Mm-hmm. And then after about a month, we're going to go back and read it again.
Right.
We usually
we understand the rules.
That's the process.
And we even quiz each other on it. We run friendly competitions within the team.
Oh my god, the Kahoots.
I don't know if you've heard of Kahoots.
Of course, you've heard of Kahoots.
Oh, dude, I failed every single one. It's so embarrassing.
Sophia is incredible at Kahoot. She wins every time. Very good understanding of the rules, and also in general, very good at Kahoots.
Some of our members have apparently studied Kahoot game mechanics because that is a thing. But yeah, oh my god. But yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of work to keep up with everything and all of the rules and specific stuff.
If you can find creative ways to get your team to really understand the knowledge, then you're very likely to be successful with the understanding.
Yeah.
If you find ways to do anything like educational, like make anything educational into a game, you're gonna be golden.
Yeah.
That is true, yeah.
And everyone on the team should be able to answer general questions about pretty much every topic. You have to understand what every part of the team's doing. So, like, for example, I understand what software is trying to do. I don't know the specifics, but I know that we're using what's an odometry-aided navigation system that can tell where we are pretty much any point in the game. We're using auto shooting, we're using teleop, automation, and a number of other features to do things. And people on software have to understand the hardware as well.
I have seen the
so it has to go
at least once. So I'm good.
Yeah.
It's important everyone understands what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're coming to an end.
I think we're coming to an end. Like, we've been here for a while. I'm just noticing like what the time is. Is it too late for you guys or not?
It's okay.
I can go later. I don't know.
It's like
but it's a little late, but
is it like 11 p.m. or something?
11:15.
Oh God.
Oh, we're sorry.
I mean, as high schoolers, we stay up
every day.
later.
It's fine.
Yeah. Our classes kill us either way, so I don't know, this is normal for us.
The interesting part is tomorrow we only have half day of school.
Why is that?
Why is
It's
that?
like a quarter day.
We don't even have full. I'm not honestly too sure, but teachers in our state wanted an extra day of preparation.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We have 5 days a week during normal times, but we have only half day on Wednesdays.
Our academics are very lazy, but I mean, we do get more time off, so I'm not complaining too much.
Yeah.
So you've got half days on every Wednesday, or is it just
Every
this
Wednesday,
one?
yeah.
Oh.
Or actually, this is something only through COVID, though. Like, normally we have full days.
Oh, okay.
Occasionally we'll have, like... yeah, no, sorry. No, Mark, this is not a normal thing, obviously.
No, we don't.
Yeah. It's just for virtual stuff. Normally, we do have, like, 1 day a week on... I think it's, like, 1 day a week on, like, normal school years.
That's
for a slightly shorter
fair.
day. But, no, definitely not half day or something like that. But yeah, this is just something special through COVID, which is super nice.
It's nice to
I
have.
don't know why it's still a thing though, because the classes are supposed to be 30 minutes, but none of the teachers use them. We log onto the Zoom call, they're like, "Hi, do your homework," and they leave the call. So it's like you have to time it right, and you have to know the schedule because there's 5-minute breaks in between. So you log on at your first class, and then you stay on for 2 minutes. They leave. You wait 35 minutes, and then you have to time the next. Just like you go through the days, and you could be.
Well, I'm kind of jealous of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a fair amount of absences for logging into the wrong classes at the wrong time.
I missed my alarm and slept through 3 of my classes on that day because I slept in like 2 hours late.
That happens daily.
I get that almost every day. Like, that's just
a common
usual.
thing for me, at least. Yeah.
What's the educational systems in Romania like through COVID?
We're fully online as well. We've got like, I'm not sure how it works for you guys, but there's our entire 12 years of education is split into 3 parts. You've got like the kids 1 through 4th grade, then 5th to 8th, and 9th to 12th. And 9th to 12th is it we're in 11th grade. He's in 10th. He's in the 10th grade, but I'm in the 11th. And we're in high school now. And if you want to get into high school, you got to take an exam on 8th grade, which is like not primary school. Is it? It's like, what do you guys call it? Middle school.
We call it the middle school.
Middle school.
Middle school, yeah.
And you got to take that exam. And classes 8th and 12th class, even if we're online, they sometimes go physically because they've got huge exams they've got to take, and they usually just go physically. But since I'm in 11th year and he's in 10th, we've been online for a year and 2 months, I think.
Oh my
That
God.
system's been around for a long time. I remember my mom was telling me that she had to take the high school entrance
It's
exam.
been the same for 50 years for sure.
Yeah.
And we're also supposed to have shorter classes of 30 minutes. Is it 40 minutes? I think they're supposed to be shorter than usual,
30,
but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. No one quits
So
at the
sorry.
time they're
Oh my
supposed
God.
to.
Yeah.
And it's messed up a bit.
Well, that might be better than here because sometimes here teachers will never go overtime because they do not want to go overtime.
Wow.
I know there are a fair number of teachers who at 3:40 every day just clock out.
I mean, it's kind of good for us, but long run, our education's a
To be
little.
fair, I respect the hustle because if I was a teacher, I would totally just peace out after my legally required to be there, But if it's something I'm actually passionate about, then that is slightly
Right.
irritating.
For the past year, since we've entered this weird lockdown and the school's been going the way it's going, I haven't advanced at anything.
No.
I'm basically still at the 10th grade level in maths, and you've downgraded.
I'm downgraded.
Yeah, no, all of our intellect is definitely taking a spiral
Yeah.
because I feel for offline classes, academic integrity, not really a thing.
No.
Probably shouldn't. Yeah, I'm not saying that we cheated, but let's just say.
Podcast.
Okay, sorry. This
I'm
is
not
gonna
saying
be
that
a
we
quick
cheated.
I haven't cheated, but
I don't know. Maybe I
We're
shouldn't go
marketing
further. but
ToborTech really well, Aiden. Really showing.
Yeah,
us
no,
great
we're just,
profession.
golden members of our community. Thank you so much. But no, generally, no. There's a lot less. I feel like the teachers we're just learning a lot less, and it's not as interactive. Definitely,
Right.
Especially from
For example, we are now in hybrid. So Aiden and I have 2 classes a day at the high school. Aiden has one of those classes where he's at school in the library, also online, which is
so.
very weird.
Why do you
But,
have to
I
be
have
at the
to go
school and still go online?
You really don't, honestly. I live really far or kind of far away from the school, so there's 10-minute increments in between the classes. So if I miss it, or if basically after the class ends, since my teacher goes past time, because actually ironically my online teacher is really enthusiastic, then if I stay at home, then I'll just completely miss my next class. So that's not. So I'm forced to go to school there, and I don't know.
Got it.
Definitely
But,
not a fun experience.
We have chemistry in person. I think it is a whole lot easier to learn in person.
Yeah,
Right,
no, it's so much
right.
easier.
Things like chemistry, physics,
Yeah, science,
maths
basically,
should be taught physically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Through labs and everything, it's definitely a really different experience. Because we took chemistry we took chemistry online for the first we have it split into semesters. I don't know if y'all also do that.
Yeah, we got it split into 2 halves, basically.
Yeah, but for our first semester, it was taught all online, And like I'm trying to think about it now. Normally, I have a pretty good memory in terms of understanding conceptual ideas. I cannot remember a single thing from like the first semester of chemistry, honestly. So that's one of the reasons why I was really stressed for this quarter. But luckily, I think definitely when you're learning in person and we get to do labs and like actual physical reactions, it's definitely a lot more fun than just kind of like filling out a note sheet and watching a video.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely something different.
And how long is your guys' summer holiday? If we just going on that topic.
Too long, in my opinion. They
Okay,
agree with
Mark,
me.
let's not be. Let's say things will regret. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man.
Ours this year will go from June 16th to August 28th. So about like
Basically the
months.
same as ours.
Yeah.
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 And why would that be too long, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's just
Yeah,
not long enough.
Mark.
I have a unique opinion. Not many people outside of the
Oh my
United
God.
States Department of Education agree with me. A lot of, not even our age, but a lot of kids this year have lost not just teaching material, but they've lost a lot of their emotional intelligence and their ability to communicate. I know, for example, let's say you're a first grader, you're in your first grade, and you only have been to school 1 year, so you might not have too many close friends yet. You're not learning how to communicate, and it's a very critical stage to develop that kind of thinking. So I would be completely in favor of going to school all summer.
Mark, is this a personal attack?
Well, I'm
I feel offended. I didn't have any friends in first grade, and I turned out great.
Well, even if you have no friends in first grade, you're forced to interact with people. But this way, you're not going to be calling up your friend every other Tuesday or something.
But yeah, no.
I agree with Mark's idea. Just I don't agree with how he wants to like put it in practice.
Yeah. I acknowledge the problem, but I think that summer's holiday is an opportunity to get
It's an opportunity to
emotional intelligence, to communicate,
get
to
together with
socialize.
people. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So Mark, I'm gonna hit you with the respectfully no. Thank you.
But
Summer break
it
is
really
important
depends.
to my emotional intelligence. Okay,
Exactly.
keep it 3 months.
But no, I don't know. It's definitely. I guess Mark, I understand what you're saying. And
It would
is true that-
it'd only be for this one summer, and it's not like it's going to affect your GPA or it's going to depend. Your future is going to depend on this time. It would probably be just a time.
Wait, you want to extend school?
I do. But that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But no, that's not going to happen, unfortunately, because I think our new president would be voted out of office very fast if that happened. But yeah.
I find something interesting that like I don't mean to say this in a bad way whatsoever. Like hear me out, really. Like I'm not trying to offend anyone, but like in the media you hear about USA so much that like we know some things about them,
Yeah.
but no one knows anything about Romania. Like let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah.
So like you're talking about your president. I know who that is. You probably don't know anything about who ours is. And that's
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in a bad manner. It's just the truth.
It's interesting.
I feel like a stalker now.
Yeah.
Like I'm stalking them. Like I know so many things, but they don't know anything about me.
I mean,
I know I have my grandparents from Romania right now. Typically, they spend half the year. They kind of bounce back and forth between the two countries, but they were the first people I knew to get vaccinated. And they were in Romania. I didn't know anyone vaccinated personally in the United States before they were vaccinated in Romania. So that was, Romania has done a good job, I think, on vaccinations then.
Yeah, we were really
We've been
quick on
tracking
it.
Yeah,
Pandemic
yeah.
response.
But we got our problems.
We've got a lot of problems as well. It's not worth talking about them now.
Well, for example, here we almost went into another shutdown of our kind of immediate city area, and if one more person had walked into the hospital with coronavirus, we all would have shut down. But because we missed that statistic. It needed to be 15% increase in hospitalizations. It was 14.9. That made that much of a difference for us. So we have our fair share of problems here, and we are definitely inconsistent, which I'm sure you've heard.
I mean, I think this is just kind of like I don't know, just I feel like being like American in general, I feel like a lot of other like different countries know so much about us, because I feel like we're always on like international news for a bunch of like I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but considering I feel like it's mostly negative connotations that we're viewed in. So I don't know.
The news I've heard most is about something that starts with Florida man does something, and then it's like that just happens a lot to me personally.
So, the best part about that's the farthest state from us in Oregon.
It
So
is.
we don't have to worry about that too much.
Oh god.
So we had a trend here where you would Google Florida man and then your birthday, and you would see what articles come up with.
What did you get? Did you do it?
That like Florida man did something.
Yeah, we
So
did.
I'll do it right now. Let's see. Florida man, September.
And the saddest part is it wasn't even just one article. There are at least like 10 to 20 articles, like with literally the heading of Florida man does something crazy. It's like insane all the time.
Okay,
and it's on every
I
single
found
day of
one.
the year.
Okay, naked Florida man starts house fire while baking cookies on a George Foreman grill. Not even an oven. Can I just say, not even an oven.
What a
There are so many
cultured
crazier
individual.
ones though.
What is it with these Florida people like being naked all the time? They're either like
those people are crazy.
I don't know.
Oh my god. It's like,
We have.
I'm not sure. I want to know.
I don't want to know either.
No.
I don't know if anyone can answer that, but
yeah, we don't know.
for the most part, we've been doing pretty okay. We don't have any problems that are threatening to us immediately.
You sure about that?
We have a lot of media attention, but for the most part, we have the ability to protect ourselves.
For sure, yeah.
We can stay home if we don't. We're not forced to go out and go to school if we don't want to yet. If you have a health condition, nobody is forcing you to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the benefits, I think. We're doing a lot of other parts of the world have it, but they need a lot more help than we do. For example, India is really struggling right now
With the oxygen thing, yeah.
I don't think we have any reason to complain.
That's true. Yeah, we are really lucky in that context, in that regard. Definitely.
Do you guys have anything like to say to whoever's watching us right now?
Well, if you hung around for the last 20 minutes, then you must have really been enjoying this. But I encourage anyone who's watching to dig into FIRST more if you're not already a part of FIRST. See what you can do. There are plenty of FIRST teams all around the world, and you could even start one yourself. That's always a valid option for sure. If you're from a FIRST team, then keep fighting into the next season. It's not going to stop for sure. We're going to keep going. Keep your team together. Meet regularly if possible. Meet as much as possible with everybody there.
Yeah.
Get everyone involved. That's the biggest thing.
I'll piggyback off of what Mark said. I absolutely agree with everything. Stay safe, be motivated, do what you can, keep fighting. I'll take this time to promote ToborTech with the fresh hoodie. Check out Instagram. Also check out Trojan, though I'm sure you're listening to their podcast. Go check out their website. They have a gorgeous website. I absolutely love it. They have a bunch of awesome blog posts. Yes, I was waiting to talk about the website. It's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, absolutely what Mark said. Be gracious professionals. Broadcast first. Even if you're not first, there's a lot to learn. If you don't want to start a team, even though you totally should because it's great, there's a lot to learn about communication and hard work and time management and all these awesome life skills. And yeah, absolutely, there's a lot to learn. So keep learning, keep fighting, and
He's put on the spot again.
Yeah. that was I don't even know where to continue with that, but yes, I guess thank you so much for inviting us, and yeah.
This has definitely been a enjoyable experience for sure.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that.
No, this was really fun, honestly. But thank you so much. And yeah, oh my god.
Well,
Thanks for
our
coming
time.
in. Yeah, thanks for turning up.
Yeah.
It was a blast, honestly. Like
Yeah.
just seeing people from such a different culture was just fun. Thanks a lot for that, and we'll keep in touch regarding like when the episode's gonna be out and everything. We're gonna keep you updated.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good one, guys. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mulțumim pentru vizionare, noi le mulțumim sponsorilor noștri și ne vedem la o ediție următoare în data de 20 mai.